History is so dark. Everything that was normally taboo, it was to do.
But mad to think you get a little figurine, you think it's all cute, and it was actually linked to human sacrifice. I mean, what the...
It all goes back to agriculture. What?
Was that necessary? How were your New Year's? I feel like they're just going to reply back.
Leave it in the comments. On a serious note now, welcome back to Gobs and Goblets with me, Maddie.
And me, Hannah.
So, I bet you missed us over the Christmas and New Year's period, but don't worry, we're back and we're better than ever. But first of all, how was your Christmas?
It was great because I spent it at Maddie's.
With family.
Essentially.
So
yeah, it was really good. But celebrations haven't ended.
No, you might have thought they did, but they haven't.
They actually haven't. Well, they did because they technically ended 2 days ago, but we're telling you about them now. So on today's episode, we're going to carry on with the kind of festivity in case you aren't sick of it. I am, we are, but we'll give you what you want. So on January the 6th is King's Day. Now, King's Day is celebrated in loads of places around the world, and even to the point that it's like a second Christmas for some people. Mm-hmm. Like, I know in Spain, on the 6th of January, you get presents again from the kings.
And this is why we're going to move to Spain.
And these are the three wise men or three wise kings that basically came and gifted lots of things to Jesus. So, yeah, we're going to have a look into how it's celebrated around the world, what they eat to celebrate it, and a bit about the history behind it.
Obviously.
Of course. So, Maddie, without further ado.
Okay, so we're going to go back to the Roman Republic, which was actually pre-Roman Empire. Everybody talks about the Roman Empire. Nobody talks about the Republic.
This is the first I hear of the Roman Republic. Sorry.
Both of us. Even I had never even thought about what came before the Roman Empire. But the Republic is my new empire, so not that I think about the Roman Empire very much. But point being, we're going back to ancient Rome. Now, I've got to give a bit of a disclaimer with this episode. So the thing we're going to be looking at is a festival called Saturnalia. The festivities, they were celebrated for like over 500 years. So the sources from the beginning stating what happens then versus the sources at the end, obviously are very different. Things change, life changes, things happen, whatever. But with that throughout, historians have never been able to get a sort of entire picture of what it was exactly like. So it's kind of a bit like a puzzle piece, and it's a lot of fitting things together. So not everything lines up, but that's okay. So what was it? Saturnalia was a festival that happened towards the end of December to early January. And the reason it happened was because this is when winter solstice happens. Mm-hmm. And that is basically when the sun starts coming up for longer, more hours in the day, yada, yada, yada. So they would celebrate the god of the sun, Saturn. And in this time period, basically, they would go all out. Everything that was normally taboo, it was to do. I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry. Point being is that they would gamble in the streets, they would dance naked in the streets, they would celebrate, drink, eat, the whole lot. And it was just, an enjoyable time for everybody, but the people that probably benefited the most was the slaves. Why is that? Because this time is all about creating chaos and change. So the slaves, they now had the chance to become the masters. This wasn't in every single household, but it was quite a common thing that the slaves were treated as the head of the house for that week. Just because it's all about ruffling the feathers and making sure that everything's not normal. Anyway, so with this, there were other little traditions that happened. So as well as them being fed by the masters of the household and being encouraged to like mock them or like people that are higher up. There was also another little tradition that they would come out, the masters would bring out a cake and the slaves would eat it, and in this cake there would be a little bean or a coin or something, and whichever slave ate that got to play king for the week. Have fun! It would have been worse in the Roman Republic time and early Roman Empire time, because the person that became king at the end of it all would in fact be sacrificed to the god. So we're going to actually talk a little bit about the temple now. So there was a temple that was in Rome, very popular. In the 4th century, it got changed over and it became the dedicated space to Saturn, the god of the sun. And in the early times, they would either sacrifice people or pigs there. To like start off the festivities.
Sorry, did you say pigs there or pigs there? I don't know, pigs there. Pigs there.
Pigs there.
Sorry, okay.
I've lost my language
I don't know
today.
if pigs there was like a Roman god or something. I just wanted to make sure. Sorry.
No, they would sacrifice pigs there.
Okay.
And there was obviously the occasional person, because it all goes back to agriculture. There seems to be a lot of human sacrifice in, back in the day over agriculture and farming, because it's something that people just don't want to risk. Nobody wants a famine on their hand. So that is the one thing they were going to show their dedications to the gods with, and give them death, gift to them the death of someone to say thank you.
Yeah.
So another thing is that in the temples there was a cult statue of the god Saturn, and for most of the year round he would have these woolen bonds tied to his feet. Now in the period where it was Saturnalia, they would get loosened or taken off to be like, wow, freedom, da-da-da, for the slaves. Anyway, and that's sort of, I think that's the overview.
So, when did the cake come in? So Maddie's talked a bit about, they had the cake, the Saturnalia cake, and then they would put either the bean or the coin inside, and what would happen depending on who got what. That, unfortunately, is all we really know about Saturnalia cake, which is really disappointing to come and tell you as a historical food podcast. But I can't lie to you. So yeah, they would either put, the type of bean was called a fava bean, F-A-V-A, fava bean. And whoever got the fava bean, you wouldn't eat it because it's raw, and you don't want to eat a coin either. So it's just a thief, you found it out of the cake. I just want to make that clear. You don't be eating that. I wonder if they made them eat it. Anyway, lots of questions. But, what?
Well, I mean, you'd just choke on a coin.
You would.
So
unless you bit it and you felt it.
Although actually, so many questions now.
Anyway, so all we really know is that they put the fava bean in there or a coin. Now, what we can presume... Now, okay, I've had to use a lot of my historical knowledge and what I've learned over the couple weeks to come to this conclusion. But first off, we mentioned this in episode 5, the birthday cake episode. There's one of the oldest cooking texts is called Epictetus, 1st century Roman cooking book. In Epictetus, there are recipes for honey cake. We did honey cake in episode 5. Honey cake just was the thing back then. I would have guessed if they were to do a cake, it would have been a honey cake. However, people do believe, we're going to go over to France in a minute, so I'm kind of jumping the gun, but they later brought the cake to, well, they didn't bring it, but the cake later came to France, as we'll find out in a minute, and it was shaped like the sun, round as a cake, but also in France they use pastry, and the pastry is golden, and therefore it's like the sun.
What pastry is not golden?
Well, I don't know, if you wanted to go crazy and dye it with like a colour.
What, with like some blueberry skin? This is back in the day.
No, I know, I'm just saying, to let the people know that the pastry, is golden, like the sun, and obviously they were celebrating Saturn, and that was the whole point. So we can assume it would have been very similar to the French cake that we will get onto right now. Oh, also, sorry, just remembered. So the last day of Saturnalia celebrations were also known as Sigillaria. Now, basically what people would do is they'd give each other little terracotta figurines to loved ones, friends, family, and these were called Signallaria. And this we can assume linked to the human sacrifices. And now, later, when we take you round the world again, lucky you guys, you're going to see that figurines are now, in some countries, still added inside the cakes. But we'll go on to that later.
Shut the front door.
But mad to think you get a little figurine, you think it's all cute, and it was actually linked to human sacrifice. I mean, what that... Carry on, sorry.
Well, I mean, it's the same with the coin, though, isn't it?
No, I know, it's just... the history's so dark.
History is so dark. But the thing is, we didn't even make it sound as dark as it was. People actually got sacrificed.
Was that not clear before? I think that was really clear.
No, but like, imagine if we were born like a couple of 100 years ago, me and you walking down the street like the plebs we would have been. Hannah's going off this time, she's getting sacrificed 2 minutes later. Maddie, come along.
No, back in those days, I would have locked myself in, let me tell you that right
Then you would have been more likely to be sacrificed, wouldn't you? Who's this witch?
I'd hide, I'd run and run and run.
So, just one more thing to add. The Christianisation of Italy obviously changed the whole trajectory of what Saturnalia was. Because it had been ingrained into the traditions and the livelihoods of many people that lived there, nobody was going to be willing to give it up. It was a time to let loose and be free. Like, what do you can't expect people to give that up. It's like saying, well, for us it'd be like saying, great, everybody's got to cut Christmas next year. You can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So instead of deleting it as a pagan tradition, the Christianization looked to use it as a tool instead. So Christians, they said, okay, let's keep this festivity going, but let's base it around Jesus instead. So that's why it became a celebration sort of for the three kings, because that comes just after Jesus' birth. So it kind of all ended up rolling into one. They were able to keep the festivities, rebranded, new swag. And that's that. Keep winking every episode. So now we're going back to France. But first of all, we're gonna, just establish what we're looking at here. So it's almond tart called Galette du Roi.
Again, our language is awful. Yeah, Galette. I believe it's Galette du Roi.
Du Roi.
My French accent is so bad.
It's not as bad as mine. Anyway, this is eaten on the 6th of January or the first Sunday after the New Year. And as we've established beforehand, this is because of the Magi or the Three Kings. So, moving backwards actually. So it actually became very popular during Louis XIV's reign. One of the reasons this was because of this thing that was called the feudal fee. And this was when the servants or people of lower class would be told to make a cake for their masters. So every December, Louis would have a galette du roi.
Du roi.
Again, French is really bad and not my language. Sorry for all those French speakers out there. But he loved them. However, in 1711, a massive famine hit. So they nearly lost it because you were only allowed to use flour in extreme circumstances when you needed bread. But beyond that, it was not allowed to go. But somehow it managed to get its way back in. And then a bit later, when Marie Antoinette was in power, the French Revolution happened. Blimey. And the reason that this happened was because all of the rich people, they were taxing the poor population really, really highly, and they were just spending the money on luxuries that weren't needed. They were wasting a lot of food, they were just eating it, and the people were sick of it. This was their time. Now, this started in 1789 and went all the way on to 1799. However, again, it pulled back. It came back from the ashes. During the time of the French Revolution, bakers, they didn't want to lose out they were like, this is such a popular cake. People love it. How are we going to keep this going? So they rebranded the cake and they carried on selling it, but they just didn't want to get in trouble with people. So they were like, let's take anything from its past away and call it something new, which is going to be me in 2025. Anyway, so then it was, after the French Revolution happened, it came back, and ever since then, it's just been a very popular dessert. People in France love it, and it was actually, going all the way back to the Benedictine monks, it was inspired by Saturnalia and the cakes and the festivities that happened there. They wanted a bit of it. So that's the history.
It is. I'm going to tell you a bit more about the cake in modern day and also go into our recipe, because we did do a galette de roi. I really hope it's roi and not Roy.
I don't think it's Roy because there's a song by Video Club called Roy, which is spelled R-O-I. But again, I could be butchering that.
Let's hope it's roi. Anyway, so now if you go to France now in modern day, if you go into the northern part of France, it's going to be different to what you get in the south of France. Scandalous. I know. So in the north of, and maybe it was because, no, that's silly. I was going to say like years back, because they had the cake taken away from them. Maybe they thought, F you, I'm going to have two versions of the cake.
My assumption would be that it was, how like England was divided into different areas, and so you had like...
I didn't know this.
England wasn't England. You had Mercia above, and then you had England and...
When was this?
Vikings, Anglo-Saxons.
I don't do the history for a reason.
But my assumption is France was Normandy, and then they had other parts of France. So that could be it. But this has not been researched.
This hasn't been researched. It's just our theories of seeing how our brains work. Anyway, what I was saying. So yeah, in the north of France, you have galette de roi. Now, galette is anything with like pastry. Mm-hmm. So a galette de roi is basically 2 layers of puff pastry and a very creamy, dense almond frangipane. Again, a word that I really struggle saying. Frangipane inside. And then in the south of France, you have gâteau de roi. Now, gâteau translates to cake. Mm-hmm. And gâteau de roi is more similar to what you have in other places in the world. So it's like a sweet bread-like cake, or sometimes it's a brioche. So sometimes they call it brioche de roi. Mm-hmm. And it has kind of candied fruit on top, and it's like a wreath and a hole in the middle. So yeah, that's that. So a bit about kind of the history behind the actual food. So by the 18th century, what was happening in France was it became more of a galette de roi. So it was more the pastry thing as opposed to the cake. I'm not actually sure when gâteau de roi would have come in, but anyway. It was very difficult to find a recipe, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was because of the fact that it was taken away. It was literally given 2 different names so people could continue making it. And of course, if there was a famine at the time, you weren't going to be prioritizing pastries, as you've said. So that's my theory as to why it was so difficult to find. So again, I've had to use my historical knowledge and what we do know to basically come up with a recipe for you today. Exciting! I didn't do puff pastry for several reasons, and historical reasons too, you'll be proud. Puff pastry, it's just very time consuming, and it's labour inducing. It takes a very long time in comparison to short crust pastry, which is so easy and much quicker. So if you were to have made it at home or even in a bakery, it would have saved a lot of time, which means saving money. And do you know what I mean?
Did you say short puff or short crust?
Did I say short puff?
I don't know.
Short crust pastry. So even though puff pastry was used in the 1700s, so was short crust pastry. And short crust pastry literally translates to broken pastry. If you have the French word for it, it's like broken pastry. And that's because when you make a short crust pastry, it's not about kneading or anything. You literally just shove it in a ball and hope for the best, basically. You'll see later when I make it. So yeah, and then for the almond filling was very popular in the 1700s. There were already a lot of desserts that were using this almond paste and stuff. So it was easier to find an almond paste recipe. In comparison to today, when they have like the almond frangipane, they had frangipane back in the day, but it was much simpler. In today's recipe, they put eggs and cream in it.
Okay.
So anyway, almond paste or a very simple frangipane. So for this recipe, you will need, for your pastry, 500 grams of flour, 250 grams of butter. Now the butter has to be really cold. This is so important. I kind of cubed it up and then left it in the fridge, and then it was kind of easier to chuck in. You then need half a glass of water. The water isn't an exact measurement. It really depends on how much you'll need. You'll see that in a minute. And you need a pinch of salt. So what you're going to do, you're going to add your flour and your salt to a bowl, and then you're going to add the butter. And then basically with the butter, if you have a pastry cutter, fantastic. Again, I didn't, because when do I ever have anything for this show? So I used a fork, and then my arms gave in about a minute in, and Harry, our lovely cameraman, helped. So Harry then used a whisk, which kind of actually worked, weirdly, even though all
Did they have whisks back then?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know, but basically we were doing what we could have. Because especially if you use your hands, it warms the butter, and then that becomes a problem. So I don't know if they had pastry cutters back in the day.
So was this actually an easier task than puff pastry?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Yes, I will make puff pastry one day, because I do think it's going to be really fun. But anyway, so you mash it up until it becomes like a coarse kind of crumb. And then you're going to need to combine this all together. So then you add your water in. Now add the water very slowly, because if you add too much water, you've messed up the dough. So just pour in a bit of water and keep like kind of forming it together. I then got my hands involved in this part until it all forms a dough. Then you're going to get some cling film. You're going to stick the dough. I just did it as a ball, and then you wrap it and you put it in the fridge for 30 minutes. Back in the day, you would have left it outside. So for your almond paste, you are going to need 100 grams of almonds, 100 grams of sugar. Now brown sugar would have been what was more typical back in the day, so I tried to do that. 100 grams of butter, softened, and they wouldn't have had salted butter back in the day, so we've used unsalted butter. If you want to soften your butter, you can leave it out of the fridge for maybe like half an hour, or you can put it in the microwave for like 5 seconds. You need 2 egg yolks, so as you see the egg yolks have been separated. And this is optional, but they used to flavour the almond paste with either rum or like orange water.
Okay.
Yeah, but...
Oh, do you mean orange juice, or what do you mean orange water?
Orange flower water.
Interesting.
Orange flower water. It's like an essence, isn't it?
Is it like elderflower? Like how you drink elderflower? It's like infused.
I imagine.
What?
I don't know to
Let's
that
get some.
detail. So for this recipe, I actually did decide to put a bit of rum just to see what would happen, how it would taste. We have so much alcohol from all previous episodes, I was like, might as well use it up. And then, of course, this isn't for the paste, but you need to have your item that you're going to stick in the galette.
Did you stick something in there?
I did stick something in there. I stuck... I'm not going to tell you. It wasn't anything exciting. So you made that seem really, like it was really exciting. It's not. Anyway, so I stuck something in there. I can't remember where it is. You can basically see it. Anyway, so then what you need to do for the almond paste is you need to combine your ground almonds. Also, why they probably would have most likely have made a short cross pastry is because the almond paste, they would have had to have ground their almonds back in the day. So that would have taken a lot of time. So already, if something's so time consuming, you're not going to want to be making puff bloody pastry. Anyway, so you mix, almonds, sugar, and then you get the butter involved. This is going to take a while. You just keep going until the butter's like completely incorporated into the mixture. And then this is when you add your rum. And then you add 1 egg yolk in at a time to make sure it's fully incorporated. Mm-hmm. And then it shouldn't be a liquid, it should be like a paste, it should be like a sugar rub or something like that. So then what you got to do is you got to flatten out the short cross pastry. I didn't know how thick this short cross pastry was supposed to be, so I did it like maybe half a centimetre thick or something, less than that. Something like that. And you roll out 2 circles. You're then going to spoon some of your pastry into the thing. You want to leave maybe like...
Paste into the pastry?
Sorry, you want to shove your paste into the pastry. You want to leave maybe like 1 centimetre or 2 on the edge. so you can seal it. So then you add the other pastry on top, and then you're going to seal it with a fork. Now, egg washing, it was common practice in the 1700s. If you wanted to give shine to a pastry, make it look golden, you slap some egg on there. So I did exactly that. Cover it in egg, and then you're going to put it in the oven for 20 to 25 minutes. Just keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on it until the pastry's risen a bit and it's nice golden brown colour. So that is what you want.
Beautiful stuff. I'm looking forward to trying it. I don't mind almond flavoured stuff, but
no, neither.
It's very like.
I'm curious what the pastry. We know me and pastry don't get on.
They don't. That's why she chose to do the broken pastry as opposed to anything else.
That's exactly right. But it could be great.
It could be.
Yeah.
I have faith in us.
I have faith in us too.
Well, you.
I have faith in me. It's 2025, it's a new year. Okay, so now we're going to visit a few places around the world that have the King's Cake, how it's similar, how it differs, and yeah. So we're going to start off in Portugal. Now, Portugal has something called Boloré, King's Cake, and it basically happened in 1869, but let's go back to 1829. So the monarchy of Portugal basically opened up their official bakery. So then in 1869, 40 years later, it was actually a French confectioner known as Gregorio. Sorry, but all these historical people have such sick names. And I'm like, bring it back. But anyway, so Gregorio comes along and he basically, which makes sense, he was French from France, so he's bringing it to Portugal. He introduced this cake. However, he later adapted it. Okay. So he then made it like the sweetbreaded cake it is, and then he started putting candied fruit on top.
Nice.
So maybe that's how it made its way back to France, and then... Anyway, so that's what they have in Portugal. And then in Spain and Mexico, you have basically same thing, but the name's a bit different. So in Spain, it's called Roscón de Reyes, and in Mexico, it's called Rosca de Reyes. And again, King's Cake. And it's exactly the same as the gâteau in France. It's like a wreath, round, hole in the middle, candied fruit on top. Now, in Spain, you can get different variations. So you can either have it plain, or you can have it with like whipped cream inside, or like a chocolate cream or strawberry cream. Those are less common. Sometimes marzipan. However, in Mexico, it's just all plain.
Okay.
And what they put in it is interesting, because I feel like, because I'm someone who's celebrated this tradition growing up, and I've eaten roscón de reyes like my whole life. It's so delicious. It's so good. But I feel like every family kind of makes up their own tradition with what they put inside it. So like, yeah, we're saying like, oh, if you get the figurine, this means that, or whatever. Usually, I think this is the only country, if you get the bean, usually you're lucky. In Spain, if you get the bean, you're unlucky.
Okay.
So you actually have to be the person who buys the next cake.
That's unlucky.
Apparently.
Last time
Maybe
we
that's
figured
lucky.
that Hannah started COVID, so I don't think buying the next cake is really that
bad. That's true. But if you find a figurine in it, and this can be, sometimes it's a baby Jesus, sometimes it's a king, sometimes it's like a pop figure. You might just find Sabrina Carpenter in there. I don't know why I said that. Anyway, if you find the figurine, you're the person who gets crowned king of the day. So it comes with a paper crown, you put the paper crown on top. Now, in Mexico, they apparently only hide a little baby Jesus figurine in there. And this supposedly is supposed to symbolize when Mary and Joseph had to hide Jesus from the persecution of King Herod of Judea.
Wow.
And it gets better. The person who finds the baby figurine of Jesus has to host, supposedly, a tamale party on the 2nd of February. Why the 2nd of February? There's a day that they celebrate in Mexico called La Dia de la Candelaria. And this day commemorates when Jesus was brought, or presented really, to the Temple of Jerusalem.
I see. What's the tamale party?
Basically, someone has to make tamales for everyone. Tamale is a Mexican food. It's it's not a burrito at all. It's like very time-consuming. We'll do a tamales episode one day. It's like a corn thing, and then...
Lovely.
It's kind of long to explain. But anyway.
Carry on.
I've never actually tried one. And then we're going to go over to Switzerland, where they have, I believe it's Drei Königskochen. Something like that. Now, Drei Königskochen, not only is it enjoyed in Switzerland, but also south of Germany.
Okay.
And it only came in 1952. Now, the reason for this is because Switzerland actually wanted to drive the sales of their baked goods. And this cake did exactly that. I think when you put an occasion behind something, exactly like this whole festival itself, suddenly, you relate it to Christianity, it becomes a thing. You give it a period of time, everyone's going to buy it. It really is a great business incentive. So they went from like selling like, I don't know, like maybe 10,000 cakes the first year or second year or however many years in, I can't remember the exact same statistic, to like millions now a day.
Oh, wow.
So it worked. It worked. And in Bulgaria, you have something called Banitsa. And what they put in Banitsa, they either put a coin or they put a piece of dogwood branch. Now, I thought dogwood branch was like a stick that your dog's just gone and like chewed. And I thought, I'm sure like the people are not putting that in their cake. Like that'd be a bit odd. Anyway, it's not. It's a beautiful branch. It's red. Sorry, I just really had to establish this. It's red and it's got like, they try and do it with a bud, meaning it flowers.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
So if you find that, that symbolises luck, longevity.
I thought you were just going to stop at dog when you said it.
No, I just wanted to be like, say that it's not that. And then you also have a cake in Greece that has a whole other story behind it. Basilopita. And you also have 12th day cake in England. I mean, it goes on and on, but they're essentially, I think there's maybe 7 to 10 cakes around the world, king cakes. So yeah, and it's interesting like which country has kind of taken what. Like some countries use the beans, some countries use coins, some use figurines. It's just funny how they've taken.
But we don't know what you've used. So.
Should we find out?
Let's find out.
Here is our Galette de Rois. And you know what? I was really happy when it came out the oven because if I do say so myself, I think that looks fantastic. Do you not think the same?
Yes. Yes. I don't know if you'll be winning the award for the French best Galette de Rois.
Find another historical cooking partner. Right.
She doesn't mean it, I swear.
Who does the honours? You or me?
You can do the honours.
Okay, I'll cut my piece. I don't want to cut into the thing, no. Okay.
Do you want me to hold it?
Yeah, thank you. I hope the pastry's cooked. It looks cooked.
You just told me it's a
Look at that.
Wow, it looks raw.
That might just be from the juices of the almond paste.
Yeah, that could be.
Okay, that's my piece.
Where's my bit?
You cut your own bit. Where do you think the thing is?
Yeah, on this side. I'm gonna miss you. Why is it so... This is probably really unattractive.
Did you cut through it?
I don't know.
Please be...
This is a massive bit.
Can I have a look inside? I think it's this bit that has it in.
Right,
so can you eat this bit, please?
This is my bit.
Please be careful. All right. So fine.
It's okay.
Fantastic pastry, actually. It's like an almond croissant. I really like that.
What am I looking for?
Rigatoni. Just a singular piece of rigatoni.
I was in the wrong postcode. I wonder if it's...
Is it cooked? No. So it is safe to put pasta in this year if you would like to do that for some odd reason. Anyway, really nice.
I could, yeah. I'm proud of you. Your cooking has come so far.
New year. New beginnings. I did the grapes and look, first successful episode.
The drinks were good.
to be fair. But still, I'm saying I'm starting 2025 strong, and I hope it stays this way. So, thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully we continue with this greatness throughout the rest of the year. And yeah, hopefully see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.